She sent one text at 2 a.m. It shook the entire courtroom. At 2 a.m., the house was completely silent. Camilla Voss had learned to fear that silence. She lay still in her bed, listening, the way soldiers learn to listen. Not with just their ears, but with their entire body. Every nerve, every instinct sharpened by years of military training that her family never understood and never respected. She heard the creak on the third step. She knew that creak. She had memorized every sound in this house the same way she had memorized the layout of forward operating bases in places most Americans couldn't find on a map. Camilla had survived 2 deployments. She had carried wounded soldiers through gunfire. She had held the hand of a dying sergeant and promised him his daughter would know he was brave. She had survived all of that. What she hadn't survived, not yet, was coming home. The door to her room swung open without a knock. Derek stood in the doorway, her stepbrother. 31 years old, unemployed for the 3rd time this year, smelling like whiskey and something darker, something angrier. He had always resented her. Even as children, when their parents first blended their broken families together, Derek had looked at Camilla the way predators look at something they want to destroy simply because it is stronger than them. "You think you're so special," he said. His voice was low, slurred. "Coming back here with your little uniform, your little medals." Camilla sat up slowly. She didn't reach for her phone. Not yet. She had been trained never to make sudden movements when a situation was still accessible. "Derek," she said calmly, "go back to your room." He laughed. It was a hollow, ugly sound. "Mom and Dad already told me about the will," he said, stepping closer. "You knew, didn't you? You knew they were changing it, cutting me out. You convinced them." "I haven't spoken to them about any will," Camilla said. Her voice was steady, soldier steady, but her eyes were tracking his right hand. Something was in it, something long, something metal. She recognized it a half-second before he moved. A screwdriver. He drove it into her left shoulder, with the full force of his body weight behind it. The pain was unlike anything she expected. Not because it was the worst pain she had ever felt, it wasn't. She had taken shrapnel in Kandahar that had fractured 2 ribs, but this pain was different. This pain came from inside her own home, from someone who shared her last name, from someone who had sat across from her at Christmas dinner. She cried out, and from down the hall, she heard laughter. Not Derek's laughter, her parents' laughter, her mother's high, dismissive giggle, her stepfather's low, rumbling chuckle. "Stop being so dramatic, Camilla," her mother called out. "You're always making everything into a scene." The screwdriver was still in her shoulder. Camilla's military training kicked in before her emotions could catch up. She grabbed Derek's wrist with her right hand, her good hand, and used his own forward momentum to push him sideways, off balance. He stumbled into the dresser. She pulled the screwdriver out herself, which sent a fresh wave of agony screaming through her entire left side. Blood soaked through her white tank top immediately, spreading dark and fast. Derek scrambled to his feet, eyes wide now, as if the reality of what he had just done was beginning to pierce through the whiskey fog. "You're crazy," he spat. "You're absolutely crazy." Camilla pressed her right hand against the wound. Her vision was swimming at the edges. She had lost more blood than this before and kept moving. She told herself to keep moving now. But her legs weren't cooperating. She reached the bed, sat down hard. Her hand found her phone on the nightstand. She didn't even remember reaching for it. Muscle memory. Always have a communication device within reach. First rule of field survival. She opened her messages. Her fingers were slipping on the screen. She found the contact she needed. Captain Reyes, her former commanding officer. The one person outside of combat she trusted completely. The one person who had told her, the day she was discharged, "Voss, if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Day or night. You understand." She typed 3 letters. SOS. Then her phone slipped from her fingers. Then the room went dark. She woke up in a hospital. The ceiling was white. The lights were too bright. There was a tube in her arm and a bandage on her shoulder, so thick it felt like a small pillow had been strapped to her body. Captain, now Colonel, Raphael Reyes was sitting in the chair beside her bed. Still in uniform, he looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red at the edges, but his jaw was set in that way she recognized. The way he looked before something important happened. "You lost a lot of blood," he said. "I've lost more," she said. Her voice came out as a croak. "Don't be tough right now, Voss. Just listen." She listened. He told her what had happened. How he had received her SOS at 2:17 a.m. and immediately called 911. How emergency services had arrived at her family home to find her unconscious on the bedroom floor, blood pooled beneath her, a screwdriver lying 3 feet away. How Derek had been arrested on the scene. How her mother had actually argued with the paramedics, insisting Camilla was overreacting. How her stepfather had told the officers that Camilla had always been unstable since she came back from overseas. Camilla closed her eyes. "They said that," she said. "It wasn't a question." "On record," Colonel Reyes said. "Every word of it." He leaned forward then, put his elbows on his knees, looked at her with the kind of directness that had made him an exceptional commander. "Camilla, I've already spoken to the JAG office and to a civilian attorney I trust completely. What was done to you last night is aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And what your parents said to those officers, that's going to matter. This is going to court." "I don't want to make a big deal out of this," she said automatically. He stared at her. "That's what they trained you to say," he said quietly. "Your family, not the army. The army trained you to fight back." She didn't have an answer for that. She stared at the white ceiling for a long time. "Okay," she finally said. "Then we fight." The trial took 4 months to arrive. 4 months in which Camilla healed physically, but not entirely in other ways. 4 months in which her mother called her 11 times, she counted, not to apologize, but to ask her to drop the charges. To remind her that Derek had always struggled. To remind her that family forgave each other. To remind her, in one particularly devastating voicemail, that Camilla had always been difficult to love. She saved every voicemail. Her attorney, a sharp and methodical woman named Sandra Ackhaffer, listened to all 11 of them and said simply, "Good." The courtroom was packed on the first day. Camilla hadn't expected that. She sat at the plaintiff's table in her dress uniform, Sandra's suggestion, and felt the weight of every eye in the room. She was used to being observed under pressure. She was not used to being observed like this, in a place where the weapons were words and documents, and the enemy sat 20 feet away in a button-down shirt that still had the department store crease in the sleeve. Derek looked smaller than she remembered. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Her parents sat in the gallery behind the defense table. Her mother was wearing a silk blouse. Her stepfather had his arms crossed. They looked like people at an inconvenient appointment, not people at a trial where their daughter's blood had been photographed as evidence. The prosecution laid out the case efficiently. The screwdriver entered into evidence. The photographs of Camilla's wound, which caused audible reactions in the gallery. The hospital report. The responding officer's testimony. The 911 call that Colonel Reyes had made, his voice calm and precise and authoritative in the way that only military men who have seen real emergencies can manage. Then Sandra played the voicemails. All 11 of them. The courtroom went very, very quiet. Camilla watched the jury as her mother's voice filled the room, dismissive, manipulative, self-pitying. And she watched 11 of the 12 jurors' expressions shift into something cold and certain. Derek's attorney tried to paint Camilla as emotionally volatile, a combat veteran struggling with reintegration, a woman who had escalated a family disagreement. He used the words PTSD and hypervigilance and misinterpretation in ways that made Sandra's jaw tighten beside her. Then it was Sandra's turn. "Sergeant First Class Camilla Voss," Sandra said, standing before the jury, "served this country for 9 years. She completed 2 combat deployments. She was awarded the Army Commendation Medal for pulling 2 wounded soldiers to safety under direct enemy fire." She paused. "The defense would like you to believe that this same woman, this woman who ran toward gunfire to save her brothers in arms, somehow manufactured an injury that required emergency surgery and a 4-day hospital stay. Another pause, longer this time. The screwdriver disagrees. Quiet laughter moved through the courtroom. The judge didn't suppress it. Camilla took the stand on the 3rd day. She had testified before, military proceedings, incident reviews. She knew how to speak clearly and without emotional decoration. She knew how to answer only what was asked. She sat straight in the witness chair the way she had sat straight at attention 1,000 times before. Sandra walked her through the night methodically. The creak on the stairs, the open door, Derek's words about the will, the screwdriver. "And when you cried out in pain," Sandra said, "what did you hear from your parents?" "Laughter," Camilla said, "and my mother told me to stop being dramatic." "And what did you do next?" "I subdued the immediate threat, applied pressure to the wound, located my communication device." She paused. "I sent an SOS to Colonel Reyes." "Why Colonel Reyes specifically?" Camilla was quiet for a moment. "Because," she said, "he was the only person I was certain would come." The courtroom was completely still. A woman in the 2nd row of the gallery pressed her hand over her mouth. Even the judge had stopped writing. Sandra let the silence sit for 3 full seconds, a technique Camilla recognized, because it was the same technique commanding officers used when they wanted a truth to fully land. "No further questions," Sandra said. The cross-examination tried to rattle her. It failed. Derek's attorney pushed on her mental health history, her prescription for anxiety medication, a single incident report from her 2nd deployment that had been resolved and expunged. Camilla answered every question with the same measured steadiness. She did not raise her voice. She did not cry. She did not flinch. At one point, the attorney said, "Isn't it possible, Sergeant Voss, that in the confusion and darkness of 2am, you misidentified a tool that your stepbrother was simply carrying?" Camilla looked at him. "I have identified enemy combatants in complete darkness at a distance of 200 meters, she said. "I did not misidentify a screwdriver embedded in my shoulder." The gallery erupted. The judge called for order. Derek, for the first time, put his face in his hands. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The sentence recommendation was 3 to 5 years, with the judge having discretion to extend based on the voicemail evidence and the conduct of the defendant's family at the scene. The judge extended it. 5 years, mandatory. When the verdict was read, Camilla did not cheer. She did not cry. She sat perfectly still at the plaintiff's table and breathed the slow, controlled breath she had learned in the field. The breath that meant, you made it through. Colonel Reyes was in the gallery. He stood when she turned around. He put his hand over his heart, a private gesture, a military gesture, the kind that needed no translation. Her mother was already walking out. Her stepfather followed without looking back. Camilla watched them go. And she felt, for the first time in a very long time, something she hadn't been sure she would ever feel again inside the walls of a home, inside the presence of a family, inside the life she had returned to after war. She felt free. Outside the courthouse, the October air was sharp and clean. Colonel Reyes stood beside her on the steps. Neither of them spoke for a moment. A car moved slowly through the intersection below. A pigeon landed on the railing and immediately left. The city continued, indifferent and constant, the way cities do. "What now?" he asked. Camilla looked out at the street, at the ordinary, beautiful, complicated world that kept moving regardless of what happened inside courtrooms or bedrooms or the hearts of people who were supposed to love you. "Now," she said, "I figure out what home is supposed to feel like." Reyes nodded slowly. "You know," he said, "the Army defines home as wherever your unit is." She looked at him. "You're saying I still have a unit?" He smiled rare and real. "Voss," he said, "you never lost one." She didn't cry on the courthouse steps. She smiled instead. And for a soldier who had survived war, betrayal, a screwdriver in the dark, and 11 voicemails that all said the same thing in different words. You are not worth loving. A smile was more than enough. A smile was everything. Some battles are fought with weapons. Some are fought with 3 letters sent into the darkness. Camilla Voss fought both. And she won.